Hey, good morning, everybody. Good afternoon. Radio 5G is here. This is Michael Henry Dunn with the one and only Nancy Hopkins. How are you doing there, Nancy? Yeah, that kind of says it. That was very eloquent. When
Whoops, yes, and here we got this happening here. Yeah, it's been a bitch, I'll tell you.
you got floods in Florida, riots everywhere.
Not in
And,
Miami. We don't have riots down here in Miami.
well, that's good to know. So everybody's just peaceably going about their business. Is the lockdown unlocked down there, or
No, we had curfews and stuff, but see, there's a lot of outside people that are causing these and wherever they're happening.
right?
The real violence has been absolutely orchestrated. This is why I was glad everybody went to their homes to get off the streets because, major things are happening and you have got a militia that is extremely professional and highly trained. Don't think these are amateurs. These people have been sitting there waiting for this. But Miami, I said, hey, you're coming into Miami. Because Miami is such a different place than any other city in the United States. It's not an American city, it's an international city. I don't know I don't know what the demographics are, but I remember about 20 years ago that the number one minority in South Florida, Miami area, was a white single female, me. And we were the number one minority.
A rare being. We knew you were a rare being to begin with.
Exactly. So you got I was listening to the mayor of Miami, and he was like, "Well, we weren't going to let those people in. Everybody told us were here, and they just threw them out themselves."
Well, so the mayor of Miami is saying they recognized the agitators coming in and kicked them out.
Yeah, see, every place in Miami has got its own. We got the government, okay, the thing that everybody looks at, right? But in reality, every little group of people have their own militia. They're people who are just on the watch all the time. Everybody watches over for everybody. But they're very localized. They're gangs, basically, but they're not violent gangs.
And right, they're like neighborhood watch.
Right. Nobody goes into anybody else's turf without knowing where you're going. And some outsider, you're going to be spotted immediately.
Yeah.
And they're not going to pick up the phone and call Miami-Dade police. They're going to walk up to you and say, "Hey, dude, what are you doing here? Get the fuck out." You see, so this is Miami, and the mayor basically said the same thing. He said, our people know their communities, and somebody from the outside comes in, they're spotted immediately and asked to leave.
Wow. Okay, so we're talking about agitators, and we're talking about local community. Militia is the word being used for what, okay, it's, gangs in a certain sense in some neighborhoods, but peaceful ones, more or less, but armed. And this sounds like the Second Amendment in its purest form as originally intended by the founders. You might look at it that way, a well-organized militia. Right to keep and bear arms, actually playing out in the way maybe that they intended. That it is keeping out. Let's just call them oppressive outside factions, something like that.
These are trained militia people that are trying to cause these riots.
Right. Well, we're using the word militia. Can we call them agitators? Because militia. We tend to think of it.
No, by militia, when I meant militia, I meant the local people. I mean, down here you've got people from all over the world. Years ago, there were 265 dialects spoken in Miami.
Wow.
Okay? So each, and it's like, the Irish came in and they all went to the same neighborhood. You've got that same kind of flavor around here. But these are people that, and believe in guns, believe in protecting, everybody. There's no hassle with the police. The police are them. They are the police. It's like an auxiliary, eyes on the ground all the time.
Yeah.
We've gone through so many hurricanes, so much, where the communities were forced to come together, that it is much more of a community that knows who's who down here. Whereas in the major cities, you don't know who your neighbors are. And so somebody standing next to you, you don't know if they should be there or they shouldn't be there, especially in most major cities. So it's very easy for somebody to come in and to start all of this rampaging, which then leads the truly criminal, scumbags, I call them, who just don't get life. They're just, I don't even know if they're human beings. They might be just bots of some sort. Then they get into it. And
There's hey, lawlessness is the rule of the day, so I'm going to go break a window and grab me a big screen TV.
That's exactly it. I want to get my share, right? And then you got the poor people out there that are really trying to, get a message out there for George Floyd and all the others that have died. But let's just look at this. And yes, we're not talking 5G for the instant, but let's just look at this. Because what you're talking about is trying to keep people in a state of fear. And when you are going in there and they're destroying these cities, right?
Yeah.
And even when Mr. Floyd was executed, it was one of those situations where, you've been doing it to the black people. You have this race. You're racist. You're all racist, and you hate everybody, and we hate you. And all of this crap. Well, the reality is that last year, okay, 19 white people, unarmed, were killed by police in the United States. 19 of them. You know how many black people were killed with unarmed black people? 9.
Well, it's still 19 too many.
It is, but we are not a racist country. And I'm tired of people saying that we are racist. We are not racist.
I hear you so much. This is exactly what, is going through my mind, because, I'm old enough to have, I'm a baby boomer. I grew up in the 60s. When I was a little kid, the civil rights movement was really just gaining steam. Racism, in terms of segregation and all that institutionalized stuff. I've seen the whole arc of transformation. And when Dr. King was killed, and and the West Side went up in flames in Chicago, and and the radical shift in attitudes in this country, over the last 60 years. We are not. There are still deeply bigoted racist pockets, but some of this stuff goes down, and they're trying to incite a race war, and they kill this man, and it's a taped execution for the purpose of inciting a race war. That's what happened to that man, right? And so, ordinary people go, wait a minute, we're going to start a race war in America in the year 2020? When, just like as an example, comedian Chris Rock, right? I don't know if you check out his stuff. He's a very funny man. Back in 2016, or maybe it was 2012, he goes on Jimmy Kimmel and he does a routine about how, hey, this is for all you white voters out there. You white voters are nervous about re-electing, about Romney was running, right? And he said, "You want to vote for a white candidate out there that you're really comfortable with? You just vote for Barry Obama, because Barry is the whitest name in America, and he was raised by white people." And and it's hysterically funny, but it's only funny to an American audience that has largely, transcended, flat out racist bigotry and can laugh at ourselves about it, right? Now, I'm not, saying that there aren't just, terrible examples of, and racist cops doing terrible things, and racist pockets and skinheads and Nazis and all, and Ku Klux Klan, tiny minority compared to what the media wants us to believe. That's what it's just, and I spent most of my life in big cities: Chicago, New York, L.A. And all my summers on a farm in Wisconsin. So part of me is a country boy. And all the black people I know, black friends I have, in those major city environments. Yeah, stuff is still out there, but we are not a racist society anymore in the sense that they're trying to paint us as. I hear you totally.
It's appalling to me because, and the reason that I know those facts is because black people were telling me this last night on Fox. They're going out there, people that are of color that have, know the facts, and they're going, wait a minute, we are not a racist country. We don't have those statistics. And it's like even the black community understands that this is an attack against the black community by outside forces, not by their neighbors.
Yeah. So this is the big breakthrough to me. See what you think about this, is that, okay, if you've been in the know geopolitically and, just in terms of how the world actually works, you've known, about provocateurs, about agitators, that oppressive governments use them all the time. There's a peaceful protest. Let's plant some agitators in there, have them throw some firebombs, justify a crackdown. In come the tanks, and they Tiananmen Square. They kill everybody. But in America, there has been this, for a long time, a naivete. Like, well, that doesn't happen here in America because we're a democracy and our votes elect our representatives, and and they're going, oh, now it's naked, and people are talking about agitators, provocateurs, trained, this, bought by Soros. This was not, okay, it's not on. It's even getting into mainstream that people are calling it out for the first time that I've seen in this country, where, there have been provocateurs active in this country, forever. But now people are aware of it, false flags and the rest. But now it's getting called out. And even for, you're telling us the mayor in Miami just called it out and said, well, these agitators aren't getting in. Is that being covered in major media in Miami?
Yeah. I heard it. He was on Fox last night.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah. Well, it's because we did go into a curfew, but we're not stupid. It's like there was an attack on one of the police stations. And so they just, we are not afraid. We are not what do they call a sanctuary city? We're not. We know who we are, and we don't play any games regarding, politics.
Yeah.
It's like, let's be sensible here. I'm not saying that we don't play politics down here, but it's a different type of thing. It's a different city. It's a totally different type of environment that you have in Miami. But,
yeah. So as a sanctuary city, it's not one legally, but isn't it just kind of de facto? Because of what Miami's been historically, between Cuba and Puerto Rico and it being in the South with a big African American population, and then drawing all kinds of refugees and immigrants, that it's kind of a de facto just, sanctuary city. I'm just guessing because I don't know the area that well, other than, what I've read over the years. Is it just because, hey, we've got 250 dialects spoken here, we're a total international enclave with a lot of refugees and illegal immigrants, and we don't need to say we're a sanctuary city because in reality you already are. Would that be accurate at all?
No, a sanctuary city is a city that the government has said that we're going to protect an immigrant before we're going to protect an American citizen. I mean, that's what a sanctuary city is. You look at the amount of money that goes into the illegal immigrants in, like, the California, Los Angeles, to the people that are on the streets. They have people on the streets, white American, black American, people of all sorts of races on the streets that are American citizens. But if you come in and you're an illegal, then you get all the benefits. It's like an insane concept. New York, same situation. Yeah. You know, down.
So do you let me just ask you: do you view that as okay? Let's just use George Soros as an example, right? Because in terms of a policy and strategy of destabilizing societies in the West, particularly, what has happened in Europe with the refugee illegal immigrant situation and the huge enclaves in Greece and Italy and elsewhere, and that is similarly, do you view that as part of perhaps the same strategy by certain factions to introduce a destabilizing factor? Because it's that old strategy of create chaos and then impose the order that you've been waiting to impose, with essentially fascism, repression of human rights, rollback of liberties, etc. Do you think this is part of that same agenda?
This was a very orchestrated attack on Europe. It was an attack. It was using, and they tried that here when they had that massive group of people that came up from Salvador, and they were all on the border, and they were trying, all of that. That was the same thing. It was an attack. You see, this is where the people in Europe, and I mean I know people in Europe. It's not that I'm looking at the news. I'm talking to people on the ground in Europe, and also looking at the news. But the idea behind it is the new world order, where you take down the churches, and you say those churches they're not the ones you need to be with. You need to be with ours, whatever it turns out to be. It's the same thing. They're trying to take away society's sovereign identity. If you can go into a town that's, full of Nancy and Michaels, right? And then all of a sudden your government tells you that you have to take in some foreigners. And you have to do it, and we're going to pay for them. What? This is what happened. All right? Now, who were the foreigners? Oh, there's women and children and babies that are in a war-torn environment, and they're trying to bullshit. It was men. It was young men. The initial influx of people were young men who then proceeded to get money for and accommodations from the various governments under the force of the government, and then they went out and they started to do their bad things. But in the and this is from people that actually said something's not right here. I'll talk specifically. What's her first name? Her last name is Hopkins. That's why Katie Hopkins from Britain, and she was. I mean, she was lucky. I think they did try to silence her by arresting her, but she was like, wait a minute, something is very wrong. So she went to Africa, where they were leaving from Africa to come into Europe through Spain and mainly Spain, Italy. That's how they were coming in. And she went to where they were coming in, and she said, these were young men. There were no women. There were no children. The initial influx, and then eventually they had to get some women in there and stuff. But if you look at the population that came in, it is not heavily family. It's heavily young men who were not.
Well, so when we look at what's happening right now, like in the U.S., and specifically talking about Miami and this situation, that because I'm just trying to bring it back around to the picture of what we're seeing going on right now. So if you are diluting a community's identity so fast and so radically that you are introducing destabilization and chaos such that people have to turn to the state, that the ordinary human support systems of family and community and church are broken down such that people are fearful and separated and deprived of their ordinary support systems, when it's like, great, okay, well, here's where you show up for your handout if you're good, if you've been vaccinated, and Papa State will be taking care of you and controlling you from here on in. Does that roughly describe the agenda?
That was the agenda, and it basically worked in Europe.
Yeah.
But it didn't work here because we had a president that said, you're not going to do it here. I mean, this was obvious. Anybody that studies, anything and looks at what happened there, it's very obvious what it was. And so now they're going to have this, all these people who were being, they would get on buses and they'd be trekked 100 or so miles. Then they'd get out and photo opportunity of them walking. Then they'd get back on the buses. There were porta toilets all the way. You suspect that this was, just poor people trying to get out of the way of something? This was an organized attack on the United States. And the president and the military knew it. And that's why it became such a battleground in the minds of so many people. Because you got, the side that wants anarchy, that wants to tear America apart, to take the heart out of America, to make us all fighting. This is the melting pot of the world. In my neighborhood right now, I think I am the only white American for blocks. No, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Sandy's behind me. We got 3 people here that, would be white, American. If I'm in trouble, I'm going to yell, and I've got a whole bunch of people from the islands, from Cuba, the people that have lived here all their lives that are of color. We don't see each other as black or white. It just doesn't, it may someplace, but it certainly is not here, and I've lived here for 40 years. It's like, it's a different type of thing, but it's a different type of thing. You asked if we're a sanctuary city because we take in so many immigrants. They go to their families. If they go to their families. The families are here to take them in and to absorb them without a major impact, because they've got family here.
We had an example of this, a conversation with our dear friend, Reverend Maya, I think it was yesterday, talking about race. Now, she grew up in Arkansas, and then she was actually born in Venezuela because her father was working there at the time. But she grew up in Arkansas and Texas, San Antonio. And then, she's spent some years in Hawaii and in Colorado, and she's in her 70s now. And we were talking about Elvis Presley because we've got a project going on the spiritual life of Elvis. And I brought up this American moment we're going through. This was a project meeting. We're working on a documentary. And I brought up, what's going on everywhere in America right now, and George Floyd and the agitators and the riots and everything. And I said, it's interesting to have the full picture of Elvis as an American icon, as a classic American story of poor boy makes good, and boy was he poor growing up. I mean, in Tupelo, part of what made Elvis was that, when he was born, his twin brother died. He barely survived, and he's talking to a friend, on tape recordings that are the basis of the project here, saying, well, I'm only here to accomplish my purpose because of the black lady down the street who, when my mama was, had lost my twin brother, and I was just, a scrawny little thing that wasn't going to live. Black lady down the street, fed me with an eyedropper. And then he played with, black toddlers when he was a toddler. And because he was on the poorest side of the tracks, he grew up in an environment where, okay, it's the deep South, in the 30s and 40s. But, he grew up with, just side by side with black people. And that's why he was able to immerse in black music. And, and he would listen at the back of black churches to their music, and he would sneak into black music clubs so he could absorb all that music. And that's why Elvis was Elvis. It wasn't like Sam Phillips said, hey, I'm looking for some white guy who can sing black. Here, you try to sing black, and let's see if we can do something they're calling rock and roll. That's not what it was. It was who he was. And I brought this up in a conversation yesterday, and I said, well, Elvis's actual ethnic background is kind of interesting because, okay, he's Anglo, white, right? Scottish, sort of a Scotch-Irish Anglo side on the Caucasian side, right? And then there's Cherokee in there, so he's tribal, he's native, and his mother was like half Jewish. On her graves marker at Graceland, there's a cross and there's the Star of David. Elvis insisted, you put a Star of David on my mother's gravestone because of her Jewish family connections. And, there's a place in the transcripts here where Elvis is confiding to a friend and says, well, in my family there was the story that we had some black blood, but they didn't like to talk about it. So I don't care. That's good with me. So now you can bet Elvis's Deep South fans might not like to hear about that, but this is a different day. This is a different time. This is, when Elvis hit it big in the 50s and 60s, that was incendiary material to say that, that he was African American in part of his heritage. And when I said this to Maya, she was like, oh, no, we can't talk about that, because it's the Deep South and Graceland and Memphis and all those Elvis fans. And I wanted to say, Maya, it's a different day now, Yeah, there'd be some, racist attitudes among Elvis fans, but, that reality, because he was so hugely influential. And just in terms of the civil rights movement taking off, when Elvis first, when Sam Phillips first released "That's All Right, Mama" in 1954, it was a big deal that here was this white kid singing black music, and there were radio stations wouldn't play him, that said, "No, we're not going to have that, N-word loving kid." Singing on our radio stations. But suddenly white people were absorbing black culture. And that huge impact, with the music and the culture and rock and roll and everything else. And the Beatles came through the South on a tour 10 years later. And they were supposed to play a concert in Florida and was going to be segregated. And the Beatles said, we hang out with black musicians. We are totally influenced by black music. We're not going to play to a segregated audience. This is in the middle of Beatlemania. And so they said in their contract, said, hey, check our contract. We do not play for segregated audiences. Now, there would have been a riot because it was the height of Beatlemania and everybody wanted to see the Beatles. It was the first integrated audience. I know I'm kind of rolling on here, but this is just to address what you're describing, Nancy, with, there's been a big cultural shift in this country. And I think this is just going to push it further. People are going to say, enough of this BS. We are not a racist country, and we're standing side by side with our black friends, our white friends, our Latino, our, everybody, and just saying, we are America. You hired agitators from outside, back into your hole.
Well, you see it. I mean, there was an episode. I'm not sure which department it was, but the chief of police. They were in riot gear. They were facing the crowds, and two of his officers saw neighbors of theirs, and they're going, "Hey, Bob, what like this." And God bless this man. And he looked at what he had just seen, and he said, "This is ridiculous. These are my neighbors. These are my friends." And he took off. He said, "Take off the helmets. Get the batons out of here." Okay? And so now they're all stripped down. And the guy is saying to him, "You are my neighbors. We can do this." And the police marched with them.
Wow. See, that's like Tahrir Square in Egypt to me, when the provocateurs came in and wanted to throw the firebombs and justify the crackdown, and the army's there, and they're looking around and they're going, these are our people, and we don't think, Mr. Mubarak, we're going to obey your crackdown orders. And suddenly it was all over. And, a largely peaceful revolution took place because the police didn't switch sides, because the police were the most corrupt part in that situation, but it was the army. And the people respected and loved the army. And the army said, we're done with this thing of being your tools of oppression. We'll go fight the Israelis, because, that was the whole deal down there. And they were heroes from the, Egypt-Israel war. But no, we're not going to be shooting Egyptians. So that sounds like it's the same thing going on here. Is that what you're seeing?
Oh, listen, we can solve this whole situation. We can shut it down within one meal. Because there was another episode where it wasn't even clear whether the police had initiated it or the organizers of the protest had initiated it. They had a barbecue. They just started barbecuing, right? So you got the most mobile, most technically capable organization to feed people, and that's the United States Army. If you were to activate the kitchens, say, I want you to go into this neighborhood. They're having a rally there. They're opposing. They want their message out. I want you to go out there and feed them. And they have pretty good food.
Yeah, let us break bread together.
I mean, I hope the president hears me. President, please hear me. Activate the kitchens. I mean, you're not going to be having a battle with somebody that says, "Hey, how about a steak? You want a steak?
You want a hot dog?
You want a hot dog? You want some corn on the cob? Let us help you out here. Tell us what the problem is while we feed you over food." I mean, to me, when I heard this, I went, that's the answer. Just start having free food. We want to hear what you're saying. We want to feel what you're feeling. Okay? To be able to figure out how to we are not a racist nation. Period. There are little pockets of idiots. I mean, I'm so not racist that I was with somebody and they said, "I just can't vote for a black person." I said, "What are you talking about?" And they said, "Well, the black candidate for president." I said, "Who's that?" He'd been running for 3 months. I never even realized Barack Obama was black.
You see, that's what I love about that Chris Rock video. Excuse me, our listeners, a minute ago I was talking about Chris Rock. Well, do a YouTube search on it. It's hilarious. Because he's saying, that you didn't know Barack Obama was black. Chris Rock goes through all the white things about Barack Obama. And says, so here are his grandparents. He was raised by, I forget their names. He's got a picture of Barack Obama as a teenager sitting with his white grandparents. And it's a sunny day and they're wearing sunglasses, sitting next to teenage Barack Obama. And it says, "These people are so white, they gotta wear sunglasses so they don't blind each other." And it says, and Barry Obama. I mean, Barry is the whitest name in America next to Skip and Jeff. But I mean, it's Yeah, and then he shows him body surfing. Here's Barry body surfing in Hawaii. So if you white people want to vote for the white candidate, you just vote for Barry Obama. But obviously, and then
I wouldn't have gotten the jokes because I didn't know he was black. I don't look at people that way. White, black, yellow. I don't look at them that way. But that's because I have lived for 40 years in a community that it comes in all sorts of colors and religions and, so yes, the reason that you get these pockets of real anger and stuff is because they never interacted with the opposite side. We're all just human beings. But if you've never, I remember when they did the busing thing. Okay. Now, I was very much against the busing because I thought, hey, if you're going to bus people, then why not make sure that your schools are equivalent? But they're busing the black people into schools that are not, top of the line. So I was against it. But what I saw happen was very interesting. Was that even though I was against the way that they did it, what happened was that little boys and girls who had never seen a black person suddenly have them sitting around them.
Yeah.
And vice versa. And actually the busing probably did an enormous amount of opening up the hearts of all of us, because the person who is sitting next to you is of a color, but very soon you're interacting and you're not realizing that. It's just another person. And so, it kind of like those divisions, I mean, like, let's say, okay, what are you, you're Jewish? I didn't know you were Jewish, And you see people having a reaction like, I shouldn't like you, but you're my best friend. I didn't know you were Jewish. I wouldn't be your best friend. No, that's ridiculous, So it's meeting people and understanding people on a real human way. And that happened in America. I'm sorry for all those people that think it didn't. It happened. I lived through it. And this is the reason that, they really want to kill off the people my age. Because we remember.
Yeah.
We know the truth.
This is putting me in mind of something from my childhood, Nancy, where I come from a big family, Irish-American family, 10, Catholic family, 10 kids, 8 boys, 2 girls. And grew up in a Chicago suburb, but my mom and dad wanted to get us out of the suburbs in the summer. And my dad was a pediatrician and bought a farm in Wisconsin. We'd spend our summers working the farm. And one summer, this is maybe 3 or 4 years after we got the farm, my folks were active with an organization in Presencia Parish in Chicago, inner city. And they said, let's bring up, like a dozen or so kids from the neighborhood, from the ghetto, and allow them to experience the country. Let them come to our farm and live with us, and we'll set up it's just a little small little farmhouse. So we got a trout stream. Let's just set up a nice little camp, camping ground by the trout stream, and they can hang out with our kids. And so I had the experience, when I was like 10, 11, 12 years old, of just hanging out with kids my age from the inner city. I mean, from the hood. I mean, from, kids who had been through circumstances that, weren't part of my life. I mean, these kids were my age, but they looked older. I mean, because just in terms of the experience on their faces and the scars, physical scars, but we were just hanging out, and it's funny because they had what we call, ghetto dialect in Chicago, ghetto accents. And so, kids are just being kids. And so we started to imitate the way they talked, just, for the fun of it. And they were, going back and forth. And the N-word, they were throwing that around because, that's part of, black parlance, especially in those days more so. I think it still is to some extent, And so it was just a really cool thing my mom and dad did for us to give us that, because Oak Park, where I grew up, was, it was starting to have a wave of black folks moving in, but Oak Park figured out how to integrate in a balanced way. That hadn't really started yet, so I didn't know black kids when I was little. But this was like the year after Dr. King was killed, the year after the West Side went up in flames. And then I'm spending my whole summer hanging out with black kids from the inner city. And my folks also, we'd have foreign exchange students live with us. So I knew, German kids and Mexican kids and students coming over from like Japan and Liberia and France. And so I was very lucky that way. I had this education in the fact that, just hanging out with people my own age from all these different places, and especially the black kids, that was and I think that kind of happened with the country in a larger sense for a lot of us over the last 50 years. I hope anyway.
I agree with you.
Yeah,
I agree with you. Let me tell you. All right, I grew up in Oxford, Massachusetts, which was, all Christian, all white. That's the only thing I ever knew. Right? In a time frame where we really didn't have that much television either. So I'm in. I think I was in 5th grade. And we had a family that apparently was a black family, because again, I'm kind of colorblind. And I was on the playground where it was recess, and there was this crowd of, I'd say there was like five people involved in this thing. But it struck me as odd, and so I was kind of like walking over to it, and it was, there was a girl there. Actually, there was 2 girls and 3 boys, and they were essentially picking on this new student. And I didn't know why they were picking on this, but brand new student, never been in the school before, first day. And they're picking on her, and I don't think I understood why. But later on, as I got older, I realized, oh wow, they were, because I heard what they were saying. I just didn't understand why they were saying it. Anyway, I ended up in a fist fight. and then I ended up in the principal's office. And the principal is like, why did you do that? And I told her. And, so I didn't get into any trouble, but I never saw that girl again. That family was forced to move out of my neighborhood. And I've always kind of held that as a real scar on my own perception of my childhood and the people that I was hanging out with. Because, I can't say, I just never saw any of that prejudice. I never developed it. Why these 5 kids had it, I don't know. But that was the only time that I ever saw any of that. And then when I got to be a freshman in college, I was working in a restaurant in Buffalo, New York. And the black girl, and this was essentially the first time I've ever had even a conversation with a black person. The, what do they call them? Bus girl, bus boy, but bus girl. She was the one, dishes, did the dishes and stuff. And I just found her incredibly delightful. She always had a real kind of, I don't even know how to explain it, because it was a sense of joy that she carried inside of her that attracted me. But then as I got to know her, the story of her life was appalling. This girl had seen murder after murder in her growing up. And this suddenly I was looking at an America that I had never confronted because of I was blessed in the way that we grew up. And she taught me more in her sharing her life with me than I can even explain. I never looked at the world again the same way. I realized there was 2 different realities. The one I knew and the one that this young lady did. And so I think that again, it's just, you know, you're going to have a different perspective if you walk in somebody else's shoes. But you can't walk in their shoes, but you can walk beside them for a while to find out, you know, what their reality is. So I just am really, I mean, I could bitch about a lot of things, but because of those, what I've just mentioned, those episodes in my life, it's like, don't you tell me that this country is racist. We've paid the price.
Yeah, and, you know, there's only, like you say, you can walk beside someone, but not necessarily in their shoes. You can imagine what it's like to be in their shoes, but even like the most empathetic, open-hearted, non-bigoted white American is going to have a really difficult time actually knowing what it's like to be black in America, what it's like to get really nervous just, you know, seeing a cop car because, okay, you know, white person gets pulled over for a moving violation, it's one thing, and it's a very different experience if you're black. And, you know, just everything else, when, you know, we joke about, oh, yeah, Barack Obama was such a white guy. Well, he was a black man, you know, with African hair and dark skin. So his experience once he got back from, you know, Indonesia and the other places he grew up, you know, he understands what it is, just like every other black person does, to be that minority in this country in a way that we can't really, you know. But when I look at the bigger picture, or I try to look at it, you know, of what's going on right now, my impression, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, is that, okay, they're trying to start a race war. They're sending in the agitators. They're trying to justify a crackdown, trying to get martial law, trying to break up, you know, community cohesion, all that stuff that is basically their modus operandi. And as usual, this is the thing, as usual with the, you know, all-powerful, horrific Illuminati cabal plans, they screw up. It backfires. This is backfiring already. And all the stuff that they've relied on in the past, you know, between false flags and you know, inciting division and all that, we're seeing it now like we never did before. It's being exposed. It isn't working. I mean, yeah, okay. You know, they're causing a lot of destruction and they're causing a lot of fear, but it's being exposed. It's not working. And it's going to cause, you know, a counteraction. It already is causing a counteraction where instead of being driven further apart, we're coming together. That's what I believe, and I think it's what we need to encourage and recognize. You know, that we're not enough of this BS. You know, you are not going to divide this country. You know, you're not going to paint us as you know, this is not South Africa as it was. You know, so.
Well, what I loved was, you know, the fact I didn't know the statistics about unarmed murders by police, you know, and it wouldn't have been covered in mainstream media. But this is forcing the black leaders to stand up and say, no, this is not what it is, and to be informing me of the reality. Oh, we really did. We really did wipe it out. It's not that prevalent. Yes, there are terrible things happening, but there's terrible things happening to white people. Apparently, police officers shoot white and black, and more whites than black, and that is what we have to confront. Why are you doing that? Why are you killing anybody? You know, and so it's just, it's causing, it's like ripping off scabs all over the place, you know?
Yeah.
And we're only going to be so much stronger and better for this, but only if we talk about it.
Right. Well, this is where, you know, we talk about the densification, layering of densification of EMF and Wi-Fi. You got 2G, 3G, 4G, and, you know, God help us, here comes 5G. Now you're getting the densification right now of traumatic upheaval, right? We've got, you know, we've got 5G coming out everywhere. and we were exposing that, and there's a worldwide movement to stop it. And then here comes COVID. Intense 5G activation causes symptoms that are being, diagnosed as COVID. You died of COVID. We're not going to talk about 5G. And then here comes the riots and everything else going on. So it's this, there's a layering, this densification of traumatic events. And I just have a feeling that this year, with the election, that it's going to get worse before it gets better because they're desperate. The dark side is rolling out everything they possibly can, and I mean, ultimately it's going to backfire. Ultimately, it's going to cause all of us to come together. But it's it looks like a pretty bumpy ride right now. I mean, what are you getting, Nancy, in terms of the bigger spiritual picture, in terms of where you see this going? When we get into our metaphysical side, and we're talking about the new earth, and we're talking about ascension and stuff like that, this is enough to make you forget about the new earth and ascension for a good long while. But yet that reality is going on at the same time. And I don't know. I'm just trying to sketch.
We have on our Shungite show, which goes at this time, but yesterday on Tuesdays. For the last 6 weeks, we've been having Barbara Menezes and her husband Craig Stewart, who live in Spain. They're on the show, and right now we're set up that they do the first hour, and then Derek and Mark and well, I'm on both, but mostly Mark and Derek are in the second one. What they're bringing to the table is that Barbara had been a successful and semi-famous correspondent for the biggest newspaper in Spain, and she was actually in the 92. I think it was the 92 war in Kuwait. Yeah, it was. She was there as a correspondent, and so she has a real experience, world view of things. But when she started seeing her articles changed by the editor of the newspaper, and I had a conversation with her, and I said, well, was this something that was understood, that there was a certain philosophy that you couldn't go outside of? And she said, not really. She said it was there, but it wasn't anything that was cut and dry and everybody knew what the rules were. But they kept getting more and more controlling of what the correspondents themselves were saying. So she quit. And she went into, and her father and her grandfather had been in the same business, but she turned her attention to the metaphysical side, the spiritual side, and over these last decade or more, she has gotten very, very articulate in all sorts of energy concepts. So when the blue energy hit the Shungite field, it got her attention. We had been together the year before for a few shows, and then she was doing what she was doing, and then she sees this the shows that we had done on the blue plasma ball that hit the Shungite field, and when she started to listen to the stories, watch the videotape, she began to make a real deep connection with the spiritual consciousness behind Shungite. And she began to, she doesn't channel, it's not channeling, it's having a conversation with Shungite and then putting it into something that she can present to the rest of us. And my gosh, I'll tell you, she was so accurate. And so every week she gives us another communication from Shungite. And every time she does, I can see already why that is the message, because there's certain things that are happening indicating this. In the last message she gave us on yesterday was that Shungite was warning us to stop shape shifting, and by that was meant that we have an inner authentic core. Our higher self is inside of us. Who we really, really are is very calm, loving, compassionate, but compassion with not the crippling thing that it can be in some instances. You know, that you get so... It's compassion with the knowledge that you can make a change because you're an energy being. You don't have to make a change in the 3D first. You have to make an energy change in you to energetically help the situation. So when you get into that kind of emotion thing, then you are a very, very powerful manifester and controller of reality. What happens is when you become, what Shungite was saying, using the word shapeshift. Okay, what did that mean? It means that we put on this, we act differently in different situations. If we're with a business partner, we're going to become the thing we're supposed to be, a business partner. You know, you're with your lover, you're going to be, you know, so we keep shape-shifting, and I had never thought of it in those terms. So what's happening, I think, is that, can you hear the frogs?
Yeah, I'm there in Florida all of a sudden.
Well, because the yard is flooded again, and we'll see. I have a very, I've got post-traumatic stress, as does the dog, as does the cats. You know, so anyway, but we'll
so just as long as you don't shapeshift into a frog in the middle of our program.
Right. You know, yep.
And Nancy's going, so there's this dimension, breathe it, yeah. Breathe it. So we're at the top. We are
at the top of the hour.
Yeah, so let's come back to the shape-shifting Shungite topic. And what are we going to hear? We got some good music lined up?
Yes, as a matter of fact, because what happens is that she and Craig are also musicians, and very often the music that they come up with ends up being the theme of Shungite. So this is a long one; it's 5 minutes, but I tell you that you're going to enjoy it. It's called Dance of Illusion. All right, and it's
I've been doing that dance. Yeah.
Okay, so it's the energy associated with the messaging from Shungite saying, get into your authentic self, stop this shape shifting, and so I'm going to play that. We'll be right back.
All right, we'll be back. Radio 5G.
Change your heart, change your view, leave all those lies behind you. It's only a dream. Open your mind. There is no time. We can live just the way we love. Illusions, dance of illusions. Don't you fall into illusions, dance of illusions. Don't you fall into change of view. Illusions, dance of illusions. Don't you fall into illusions, dance of illusions. Don't you fall into
And we're back. Or at least I am. Michael?
I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here just fumbling with my
Mute.
fingers on the laptop because my plate of delicious pancakes was in the way. So I was grabbing breakfast during our little break there. So tell us more about that particular piece of music. That's about. It's called Dance of Illusion. Was this part of a message from Shungite?
Well, Barbara and Craig, they put this music together, and I'll have the link so that you can go to their YouTubes or their sound. What do they call it? SoundCloud, SoundCloud. They've done a number of them, and it's really weird because they're putting them out like once a week, and they've never done anything like this before. And it just so happens that it happened. They started. I mean, they both been into this. He's been really into the music, but to work it, just let's just do this. Whatever we're feeling, let's just do it, because there's a tremendous amount of work that goes into putting together that quality of a presentation.
Yeah.
And how they're snapping these things out every week is kind of like I'm in awe of them. But the information that comes out, the energy that is coming out, is in sync with the messaging from Shungite. So they're within the spiritual realm, within the realm of energetics. There was even a there's people talking about. There was this guy, oh gosh, I don't remember his name again. He was on Lance White, and he's an astrologer, and he was talking about 2020, and he was so excited about 2020 because there were so many energetic things coming together with the stars and the energy at that level that indicated great changes, good changes. You know, and he was so excited. I mean, it was, well, now I keep thinking I'm going to pull that guy's tape, you know, and play it and listen to what he said again about, you know, because we're in the midst of what he was talking was going to happen. And so you got all of these very intense spirit. I mean, look at the blue. Was that the Hopi blue light that would indicate, you know, the end of the fourth world and the beginning of the fifth world that hit the Shungite?
Might have been, right? Yeah.
It certainly could have been because that happened on February 21st. That was a Friday, Saturday, Russia. Okay, so then on Thursday, the following Thursday, I go and I have a dental appointment and I got this, that, and the other thing that's happening. And all of a sudden, we're talking about a pandemic and a shutdown of the country. And, you know, I'm sorry, you know, within a week of that thing hitting, everything stopped. Everything in the world stopped. I mean, come on.
Yeah. It's like the day the earth stood still, that old sci-fi movie.
Absolutely. So, yes, we're in the midst of a intense energetic change, an intense expansion of our understanding of who and what we are as spiritual beings. Never mind 3D beings, but spiritual beings. And the awakening of human beings is happening at a far greater rate than most people are even aware of. So, yeah, there are layers of players in this field. And the biggest players are the people who are aware that they're in a spiritual battle and that the weapons are thought. It's not how, you know, it's thought. Thought is the ultimate vanguard of creation. If you don't have that, a new thought in your head about what you want to see, and you keep, you know, playing these roles and agreeing with it and politically correct and all this other stuff, then you're just falling into the energy that perpetuates this crazy reality that is falling apart. Get your minds away from that. Acknowledge it, but put your minds into the concept of, no, there is no, you know, major rift between races, between religions, between societies and humanity. It doesn't exist. The media, the educators, those people that want to control, they are the ones that keep telling us it is. It doesn't exist. Know that in your heart. And if you just go back to the rules of cosmic reality, rule 1, reality is what we think it is. Rule 2, majority wins, and that doesn't mean the numbers, it means the amount of energy that you put into a given reality. And the third one is, anyone in charge of a given reality is going to keep everybody else from knowing rules 1 and 2. Well, guess what? We know rules 1 and 2. And those that were in control have lost all control. It's just a matter of us coming up and taking over the responsibility of creating a reality that we want, not what we're told exists.
Yeah. There's something I want to share with you that just came in. I don't know if you know Pam Gregory, wonderful English astrologer. We follow her stuff. She's very insightful. And she just shared something this morning from someone called Syra Francis, who I gather is a mystic of some kind. Whatever, just the message that came through is right along what you're talking about, Nancy, in terms of this massive shift that's going on, and it's called that there's a massive infusion of light right now coming into the planet. Let me just read this. It's pretty short. I don't know if it's true or not. It feels true. I know a lot of people who are saying they're experiencing the exact same thing right now, like in the last 48 hours. So it says, I received a message this morning that the light coming into our planet at the moment is more powerful than anything we've felt before. No human being on Earth will have felt it like this in their lives. It is so strong it is literally burning into us. You might feel sensations in your body. particularly during meditation or the moments of drifting into sleep. It's likely you'll experience something like pushing, maybe around your temples, cheeks, or upper chest. This is the light energy reaching into you for deep healing, activating and awakening parts of you, and easing long-term suffering. This isn't an overnight process and might just be the beginning of transformation for us. They told me the light energy coming to us now is stronger than any love a human can feel, stronger than any healer has shared. It is pure celestial energy that is able to reach us now as never before. If you find this process uncomfortable, breathe deeply. Create an inner smile to banish fear. Do yoga, eat well, and rest. If you're troubled by what you feel, reach out. In this group, she says, a private message me and share. This is a private, safe place of like-minded people, so don't feel alone. That's now. I don't know anything about Saira Francis. I don't even know if that's a man or a woman. It's spelled like Saint Francis, or it might be a man. But I know people who are experiencing this, things like this. You know, you hear people talk about ascension symptoms over the last few years, but I gather that there's been some kind of major intensification in the last couple of days. Have you felt that at all?
We actually talked about it yesterday. What it is, it's an interesting thing, because I got a whole bunch of downloads while we were having the conversation, Barbara and myself. What's happening is, okay, when we got the blue light was an incredible, I mean, just, you know, super duper high level of energy that hit the shungite. Shungite is worldwide. Everybody's got shungite in someplace nearby. You just don't know it. Because you got people out there that are just putting it all over the place. You know, there's at least 100,000 people that have reported that they have done a shungite grid on the map we've got. That's the people that report. That's probably more like 1% of the people that have done it. Okay, that's the way that reporting occurs. That's the frequency of it. So when you're looking at the massive amount of shungite that's worldwide now, that has had this upgrade from a celestial source, all of the people that have shungite around them, and I talked to a lot of people during this, when the blue light hit in February, and everybody felt, yes, that my shungite, I mean, one woman, the shungite was glowing blue, and she did, her and her husband, she had no idea why until she heard our radio show. So we knew there had been a massive upgrade. Okay, so what this upgrade did with the people that are actually engaging with shungite is that it gave you a boost, an adjustment into your energetic system. Now, a lot of people were aware of it, a lot of people weren't. But now what's happening, what she's talking about, you know, that there's a new energy flow that is occurring, and it's occurring very fast. And, you know, what is it? She called it celestial energy. Okay, this is a different source of energy that we're feeling right now. Because what's happening is that so many are turning on, okay, that they're having, you know, like, oh my God, I finally feel like I'm right. As soon as they feel that, then, and there doesn't even have to have shungite. Any person that does this, the shungite is going to feel it, and it's upgrading. It's upgrading from the upgrading of human beings, and that's why it's happening so fast, and it's like all over the world. Because we know that if a human being makes a change, there's 40,000 other people who are so similar to your energy frequency signature that they also begin to vibrate in this higher frequency. This is the way the change is happening so fast. And so, but on top of that, we have shungite, and for those people that don't understand shungite, read my book, Shungite Reality. Just go to cosmicreality.com. You can get a link to the store. You'll get a shungite sticker. The book is stamped with it. It's a quantum entanglement with shungite. And shungite is not and I don't bow down or, adore Shungite. Shungite is a tool, an energetic tool that is allowing human beings on a very, very energetic, spiritual way to becoming what Andrew Bartzis, the galactic historian, said, we're all becoming Shungite beings. And it's the fact that Shungite itself holds every frequency that you'll ever need. It's like the ultimate medicine cabinet. So, that's what, it's a tool. But it is a tool that not only can we use, but it teaches us. So, about enterology. That's why I say, read the book, Shungite Reality. Because it gives you, yes, it talks all about Shungite, but it also talks about enterology and about quantum entanglement that keeps everything together, and about a sympathetic resonance that makes everything go. To be honest with you, it's a brilliant book. It's not, I took what Walt.
I know, I second that. I've got my copy, folks. Read it.
I took what Walt taught me. We worked together, and it's just an exciting and a marvelous adventure that we had. But in the end, we want everybody to be able to understand this, because if you can understand it, then you are truly the captain of your ship. Because you can,
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm reminded of how when you said that about the date, you said February 20th, 21st was when the blue light meteorite hit the Shungite deposit, right?
Yes, as best as I can figure.
Yeah, and so I just happened to mention it to you. As I recall, this is how it unfolded, right? I just happened to mention it to you, sent you a link. You were like, holy smokes, I got to check this out. You talked to people in Russia. How close was it to the deposit? Then you got feedback from energy healers and workers and various other people about the upgrade, right? And I thought, well, what the heck? Let me check in with Carrie Cassidy over in Project Camelot and, see if she wants to cover this. Well, that was really interesting in terms of the Shungite field upgrade and getting the word out. Right now, I got in touch with Carrie. And I floated the idea to her. She's like, no, I'm not interested. And you guys are just trying to make money off Shungite. And I said, no, actually, Nancy divested herself of that business. And this is not about selling Shungite. This is about an extremely unusual event that is having a measurable energetic impact, and that the timing of which, given everything that's going on, is something you might want to cover. And so even though it looked like it was not going to happen, one thing led to another, and sure enough, we went on, Carrie, and it was a controversial show. I mean, for whatever reason, Carrie was in a very defensive place and a dismissive kind of place around. Carrie entertains some pretty out there stuff and signs on enthusiastically to stuff, much more, let's just say speculative than what was a measurable event directly over the Shungite deposit in Karelia, right? But be that as it may, controversy sells, right? Controversy and you and Carrie going at it, and immediately, so it's like within a couple of weeks, a week or two of that event, it was going out on Project Camelot, thousands of people around the world, because of this serendipitous interview that did not want to happen with an interviewer who did not want to have it, But you go to that.
Well, I didn't want to go. I didn't want to go. Remember, I said no. I don't want to do this.
Right. Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So I mean, it was like, no. It's just go ahead, make your point here, because it's like,
well, okay, we don't need to go back there into the conflict with Carrie and all the rest of it. God bless her, she's doing the best she can. But my point was simply that, just in terms of synchronicity, the fact that I think you were the only source, you and me, bringing it up to Carrie to get that story out there, such that the upgrade to the shungite field could be consciously worked with by thousands of people around the world. That video, I believe it's titled Shungite Update on Project Camelot. And there's, I don't know, 20, 30,000 people, probably more by now. But it's just, when we're talking about the shift, the turn of the tide, that the shungite field is working with us in a way that is more powerful than we can even guess if we tune into it. So I just thought it was really interesting that so quickly after the event itself of the blue light meteorite hitting the deposit, that you and I, managed to get on a pretty widely distributed show where the interviewer didn't want to do the interview, you didn't want to do the interview, and I was kind of saying, I think this wants to happen. And, so here we are, 4 months later, and the dirt's hitting the fan, but so is the light, even more strongly.
I mean, this was something that was filmed. It's not like somebody saw it. This was filmed. From the instant I saw the film, and you can see this, anybody that hasn't seen it, RT.com, put in Russian meteorite. We'll probably you'll probably get to it. It's a Karelia meteorite, but I bet that in and of itself will get you to the article that has the video from a camera that was looking at security camera, I'm assuming, looking at a church across the street. But it wasn't focused completely on the church. It was off to the left, and actually the main focus was on the sky. And into this little camera view comes this big blue ball of light that has no tail, so it is not a meteorite. Because a meteor comes in, you can't see it until it starts heating in the atmosphere, and then it starts to get a tail because it's burning up, and that's the crap that's coming off of it. That wasn't what it was. It was a solid blue circular light that came in and then exploded. And when I saw the video, I realized that I said to Derek, I said, this is like somebody set this camera there to record this. That's the only reason it was there. It was stunning. And so now you got this image of this exploding ball of blue light over the shungite field. This in and of itself was stunning. And I knew what shungite was. And I'm like, oh my goodness, and then immediately, every piece of shungite, boom, had the blue because of the quantum connection. So, and then, if that's not enough for you, well, you got the Hopi, prophecy of the blue star Kachina.
Yeah.
And, does this fit the bill? It's like, well, it comes awfully close if it's not, And then within, 10 days of that, you have the world stopping. Come on. There is celestial, spiritual, and things that are happening all around us, and I guarantee if you're listening to us, you are part of it.
Yeah, and, our friend Maya here in Colorado shared with us this morning that she had a vision last night of a being known as the Hathors. If people who follow Tom Kenyon might be familiar with the Hathors, who are benign beings essentially through a portal from another universe who are helping us as best they can. And the vision was of a Hathor pulling back a veil through which light was pouring from their universe to ours, to our planet, specifically in this moment. I love the vision. I go with things like that as, certainly Maya's record of accuracy in high sacred science is well worthy of respect. And my attitude is always, okay, what use is this? Does this story, does it cohere? Does it add up with everything else I'm seeing? And this, combined with what you're talking about with shungite and the blue light hitting it. I wanted to ask you, Nancy, did you ever do, I don't know if you can do a remote on the origin we talk about an anchor point. Yeah, just take it out to, the Blue Star Rigel and Constellation Orion. I mean, did you have any sense of the origin point of that blue light?
Oh, well, yeah. Okay, so I did a remote view and ended up being very stupid about it because I said, take me to where this, at the time I wasn't sure, I hadn't seen the video. And I said, take me to the place that this landed or exploded, because the article that I had read on the phone when you sent me the link said it may have exploded or it may have crashed. They didn't know. RT was reporting they didn't know and exactly where it was. But I said, take me to where this happened. And the next thing I know, I'm doing a remote view. I'm in the shungite field. And I go there all the time. So I'm going like, why am I here? And then all of a sudden I realize that around me, all of the shungite is glowing the same blue. And as soon as I acknowledged that, boom, I was back out of the remote and sleeping. And I wake up and I go, what? I've never fallen asleep in a remote. But what I had done is, I realized after the fact, was I said, take me to where this thing happened. Well, I had taken myself to where it happened, right underneath where it was happening, and the dang thing had exploded. And I was about to get covered with whatever was up there. And, so it was like, no, we got to get you out of here, before you get hit.
So you went into a protective shutdown sleep.
Yeah, exactly. Get out of there. So, but then when I realized what I had done, I said, oh, good, that was really stupid. I said, okay, I want you to take me back, but I want you to put me in a position above the explosion, so that I can watch it. I really, really don't, want to get creamed with whatever was there. What that would do in an etheric remote viewing, I don't know, but it was like, I don't think I want to know. And apparently I didn't need to know because I fell asleep. So anyway, I go back in, and this time I'm airborne, let's put it that way, and I'm looking at the explosion, but in a remote, once you're in a remote like that, you can actually almost like go backwards in time. Okay, show me where it came from. And so I'm watching now what I'm looking at is, instead of the explosion starts to become the ball again, and then it goes farther and farther. It's actually reversing. It's playing back. Okay, so while I'm watching it, and you got to be really careful not to do this, but I've done it so long that I kind of can do it without losing the remote, is you don't want your 3D brain to start analyzing what you're looking at, because it'll drop you out of the RB. But what I'm doing is I'm keeping it kind of to the back, but I actually thought that I was going to see an ET ship. Or maybe an American ship, a Space Force ship. But I was convinced, because I'm watching this thing, and I knew that wherever it came from, it seemed to be kind of local, right? So that's why I think I started to think in terms of a ship. But then all of a sudden, I was looking at a face. And, I finally, the only way I could explain what the impact of what I had in my vision at that moment was, I was looking into the face of God. And I realized it was that this, whatever it was not sourced in this 3D dimension. That it was definitely something way beyond that. So yeah, I did remote it.
yeah, that works for me.
And the other thing to prove that what I'm telling you is the truth is that I had not seen the video. Okay, I did not know that. What happened was, okay, so finally I look at the video and I go, oh wow, this thing did explode. I didn't even know if it exploded or landed. Okay, so it did explode. So that's a true reading. Okay, so I said, but I was in the shungite field. Where did this thing go? And so then I did some map stuff, and I got the city and the figured, and I said, okay, it looks to me that if this camera was pointed to the south, that indeed it went over the shungite field. Okay, but I didn't get confirmation of that until a couple of days later, when I got confirmation that it had in fact exploded directly over the shungite field, and that information came from the woman who runs the Shungite Museum in the village of Shunga. I don't know how much more accurate that testimonial can be, and they sent me maps to show me exactly where it fell.
And wasn't there a possibility that there were some fragments that hit the ground that some of your friends over in Russia might have been able to retrieve and maybe even share with you?
I haven't heard any more about that, but then again, I've been very busy doing things. The world is all different, you know. But we'll see. I mean, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. But yes, there is particle. Well, let me put it to you this way. I don't think they're going to find, they may find some stuff, but I'm not sure they're going to, because when I went back and took another look at it, yes, there were things but it was a plasma ball. It was like a light ball. It wasn't something from the 3D. Okay. So I don't think they're going to ever find anything like that. But there does seem to be an interaction with some of the shungite where this plasma actually hit it that would make particles of the shungite look very odd. You know, that's what I like. It reminds me. Okay, it reminds me of moldavite. Okay, moldavite, which you only find in an area of Czechoslovakia, was caused by a meteorite hitting, and the interaction of the heat, the pressure, and the chemicals in the meteorite merged with the chemicals in the soil to create moldavite, which you only find there. So it's sort of the same thing, that they could find stuff that is just little. They'll know it. Maybe not. I'll talk to them. I'll see if I can. See, I also have been in communication with the guy that runs the mine. Right there.
Oh, right.
You know, so yes, I mean, I'm not doing it right now, but I have just been gifted with some really, really important contacts right there in Shunga. I've named my new cat Shunga, by the way.
Oh, of course you did.
She said that was her name. Actually,
okay.
I said, "What's your name?" And then all of a sudden, Shunga. I said, "Shunga," and she looked at me and yes, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, funny. Yeah, they say that cats actually do know their names. They like to pretend to us that they don't know their names, but they do. And that's cool.
I've got two cats. I have two cats where I had to go through a whole series of names before I got the one that they agreed with. That's it. Okay.
Yeah, there's that cartoon making the rounds. Maybe you saw it, where the title of the cartoon is "What We Say and What Dogs Hear." So it's like you got some woman in her living room scolding her dog for being up on the couch, and he says, "Bad dog, Rover. You should stay off the couch, Rover. Bad dog, Rover." It says, "What dogs hear? Da 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 da. Rover. Da 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 da. Rover." Right? That's all they hear. And then it's like, "What we say, what cats hear?" And the cat has clawed up the couch, and it says, "Bad cat, Fluffy. You shouldn't have scratched the couch, Fluffy. You're a bad cat, Fluffy. What cats hear? Nothing." Right. Cats don't care. But apparently they've done studies recently where cats actually do know their names. They just like to pretend they don't. I want to bring it back to what you were talking about shortly after the blue light hits the shungite deposit, days, weeks, couple of weeks, suddenly, it's the global shutdown. And, I'm a storyteller and a screenwriter in my time as well. And, it's reminding me so strongly of that classic 1950s sci-fi movie, The Day the Earth Stood Still. Now, I don't know if I think of it as a classic. You know the one I mean, Nancy?
Oh, absolutely. Most people would know the one that's got the young guy there. That was, what's his name? because it was remade.
Oh, was it? Because in the original, okay, the spaceship lands like in New York City, and everybody's freaking out, and then this big, tall, robotical being of light emerges, and then suddenly the Earth stands still. In other words, cars won't move, electricity won't work, clocks stop. Literally, everything stops. And, the army comes out, they're going to try to take out this spaceship that's landed. And if they do that, and they come up too close to the big, tall, alien, a light comes out from the alien's helmet and they disintegrate. The soldiers disintegrate, but the hero of the story is trying to rescue the girl or whatever, and he is given these words. And if you just say these special intergalactic words as you approach the spaceship, you will not be disintegrated. And this is just a weird thing about memory. I mean, I saw this movie when I was a kid. I don't know, maybe, 9, 10 years old. But I remember the words. It's funny. I haven't seen it since. I haven't checked YouTube for the clip. I'm sure I could find it in 10 seconds. But just for all of us out there, I'm pretty sure this is right. You're coming up to the alien spaceship and you're going to get disintegrated. And the beam of light as helmet, you just say, Klaatu Barata Nikto. Right? Anyway, but the message from the alien was, you are destroying your planet, you're destroying yourselves, you're on the brink of nuclear war, and this is your last chance. So the blue light meteor, well, it wasn't even really a meteor, well, let's call it a plasma ball, from a very high divine realm, from what you're sharing with us, is kind of giving us that message that rather than, hey, you're going to get destroyed, it's, hey, here is a massive divine gift. Use it. And that's what we're doing. Talk about the Shungite grid that you and Derek have helped, make people aware of, the power of spreading the Shungite field around the planet. It's game over, right? Didn't you say that there was some receiving or channeling that came in where like some major archonic bad guy left the planet? Major force for, the bad guys just said, well, they've discovered the antidote. We're toast. Let's get out of here. Back to our bad galaxy we're from. Am I telling the story right?
Yes, it's called, it was referred to as the Demiurge. Demiurge? Yeah.
Oh, the original bad guy Demiurge. That's a big bad guy to get rid of.
Yeah, and it was associated with black goo. Because the black goo acted as a sentient being, let's say, that was a control element of the Demiurge. And what happened was that, what's his name? Why am I having a blank on his name? Harold Krautz. It's three names, but he was working with the black goo and had been for quite a long time. And it was odd because he kind of went off the radar for a while. And then he comes back up and he starts telling about that this thing has that. Okay, the black goo that is the negative black goo actually hit the planet Earth because it exploded in another planet, and this is like the mind of a planet. Okay, Earth's got her own, and this stuff came in and sort of like usurped the throne, kind of Gaia, because the black goo, the dark black goo, came in with the force of this Demiurge. The thing that's in Mecca is the black goo, in the.
Oh right, yeah, the Kaaba.
Yeah, the Kaaba, but that in the corner there's a. They said it was a meteorite, and it did. It hit like a meteorite. I mean, it was just a shower of meteoriting. But anyway, so Walt and I got together, and we were working with this black goo concept because the Falkland. This is so well. We got a few minutes. The Falkland Islands War was all over black goo. Because the island there, which Thule, I think is the name of it, they had actually started drilling and were pulling up black goo. Now, the Gulf of Mexico also was doing this deep drilling to get what they were calling this pure oil. Actually, that's actually Gaia herself. You're taking out it's like taking out part of the neuro system of the planet itself. And it's very, very dangerous. It's very, very, I mean, it does all sorts of weird things. But the British and I don't even know how much the Argentinians knew about what was really happening behind the scenes. But the British went and got a bunch of this stuff and took it back to England and gave it to the Marconi company to figure out what it was and, how to control it. They basically understood what it was. They wanted to understand how to control it. Well, instead of these techie young whippersnappers, the super smart people in the world working for Marconi, instead of them being able to control what they had brought from Argentina and the Falklands, it controlled them. And the reason that we got into looking at this was partially because of what Harold had said to Miles Johnson on a show, and partially because there was over 20-some suicides from that same place. And bizarre suicides. I don't even want to get into how bizarre the suicides were. But apparently, according to what Harold could figure, was that the black goo itself had a really powerful sentience and it could take over. It's almost like AI. It is very much AI, but it's a very complicated thing. So anyway, Walt and I and the Jinn and the angels and Gaia herself, we decided to get rid of this stuff. And
sure, why?
Well, if that's the problem,
Nothing better to do today.
Everybody in, because we would never, ever, ever attempt anything without, a direct communication with Gaia. Is this what you want to do? Tell us what you want us to do. And so, anyway, we got rid of the black goo that we knew of, and it just so happens that years later, Harold comes out from wherever he went and started doing interviews again, and he said that, I don't know who did this, and if I did, I wouldn't even tell you, because if somebody was able to really conceive of getting rid of this, they would have had a tremendous amount of help from other sources. No one human being could have done this. So even if I knew, I wouldn't tell you, because that's not the whole story. But he said the demiurge was gone. And then somebody else started talking about, I don't think they were talking demiurge, but they were talking about the power behind the darkness, the deep state and all that, had actually left the planet and essentially surrendered.
Right, so that leaves them kind of out on a limb, on their own, without their power source, hence even more scared and trying to salvage what control they can because they're stuck here, right?
And you see them repeating the same actions over and over again with the same results, and not, how stupid do you get? Every
that
time,
definition of insanity right there.
Yes, because they don't have any leadership. And I had detected this when they started doing some of the, let's just say, FFs. That thing that flies, but we don't talk about because that takes us down.
And it isn't what it appears to be, that thing, yeah.
That thing there. Because they were very, very much, very, very much repeating the same scenario. And it was like, wait a minute, it was like they were using a playbook but not in the right environment. As a military, strategist, I would have said, that doesn't apply to this particular situation, but it's identical to the one you used over here. Where is the leadership? Where is the changing? It was like they were using the same playbook over and over again, no matter where they were.
Isn't that a classic military mistake? They talk about, all the generals always refight the last war. Like the Maginot Line, in World War II, France built this huge, hundreds of miles long barricade with pillboxes and, to keep the Germans from invading where they'd invaded in World War One. So there's this huge, don't worry, the Maginot Line is going to protect us, to go to refighting the last war. Well, the Germans just went, oh, you've left Belgium wide open. We'll just take a little end around. Thank you very much. And they came through Belgium. It's that refight the last war. Only it doesn't work this time, boys. And it's apparently not working for them.
Well, I think of it more like a chicken with its head cut off running around.
Oh, wow.
Seriously, because if you stand back and you look at all that's happening, it's really insane. There's no common sense in what these people are doing. I mean, I could go on for hours about, the insanity that we see. So, to me, it's all falling apart, and the only thing keeping it there right now is people assuming that it's real. So let's do the dance, Let's do the dance of illusions and get rid of the curtain. The curtains are being pulled back all over the place is what I see happening.
Yeah. And, a keynote that I've read that the cabal always tries to employ when they're going to pull off something big is have it be so audacious, so beyond anybody's imagination that they would ever try to do something. 9/11 being, the best or I suppose worst example of this, just the audacity of it, that it would just leave people in such disbelief that something so massive and so horrible could be perpetrated. It's like unimaginable that would be, an inside job. That because it was just so, mind-blowing and traumatic in its impact. And I don't think, they can't pull anything like that off anymore. I mean, they may want to. I mean, like, okay, race war, okay, kill this innocent man right on tape in front of everybody in what is clearly a murder. They're not trying to subdue him. It's not like a police brutality thing where they're beating him. They've just got one knee on his diaphragm on his back and one knee on his neck, and we're just going to wait till you're dead in full view of a camera, right? So, but it is not, as horrible as that is, when you think about 3,000 people dying on 9/11 and boom, they get a war on terror and they, the Patriot Act and the rest of it, they're not able to pull it off. They've been exposed. It's clumsy. It's obvious. People are seeing through it. I mean, what's being done is horrible. You got cities burning down, but it's just, and it's probably just they're going to get more desperate before the end, but it's getting more and more obvious and clumsy and is bringing their end more quickly, is how I see it.
I agree. I agree. There's an old rule of war saying, don't interrupt your enemy while they're self-destructing.
Yeah, that's a really good one. I forgot about that one. Yeah. Yeah, wow.
So there's for people that don't know the Q phenomenon, it's just a fun story. But I got to tell you, somebody just recently, an astrologer, put out an analysis of the Q phenomena based on when it first appeared, and through an astrological chart. Oh, Michael, it's fascinating. Really? Fascinating. Yeah, I'll get the link and give it to you, and I'll put it down here underneath there, because if you are a Q follower, this is an important message for you to hear, because the astrologer himself said, I did this because A, I wanted to see, but now that I've looked at it, I want the people that have been following Q to understand the full implications from an astrological standpoint of confirming exactly what we think is happening with Q. Very powerful article.
Well, it's funny about about Q. Eleni shared with me this morning that she was watching a David Wilcock thing, and David's doing his follow up to, his sources were saying, big huge events in April and it didn't happen, whatever. He's doing his follow up, and he's doing like Harry Potter with the name of Q, where you don't say the name of Lord Voldemort. It's just he who must not be named. You know who, he who must not be named. And so David Wilcock is actually in his show on the air saying, so when we refer to the entity, the letter between P and R, alphabetically, it said, and so we've got the latest message from the letter between P and R. I think that's possibly a bit over the top, but it's supposedly because of the robotic scanners on videos, that if you say the FF or, you're talking too much about, the number between 4 and 6 and the letter between F and H, right? The name of our show here on Radio 5G. Yes, I dare to say it. That supposedly the robotics will pick up just you saying the name Q and, get yourself shadow banned or have your subscribers suddenly, get cut in half or any of those other things that YouTube does to enforce the will of the corporatocracy. I'm sorry. I can't get that silly.
Let me for people that don't know, the last real 5G show we did got taken down off of YouTube, but within days it was up on BitChute because somebody went to my archives, pulled the picture, pulled the audio, and put it back up on BitChute. So now we've been, baptized in censorship. We must be doing something right here, Michael.
Yeah, and this show right now, Eleni's telling me, hey, it's not streaming. We're not on Cosmic Reality.
Okay,
right
that
now.
was my fault because I spaced out and I hit the record button that would instead of the station button. So it was my fault. I just realized it a few minutes ago. I had turned on the streamer, but I didn't hit the send it out to the world. I hit the record.
Oh, okay.
My fault.
So your live folks have not been hearing this, but maybe they are now?
No, I didn't turn it on for the last 5 minutes here. I said, well...
Yeah, well, what the heck?
At least...
In any case, we're going to be on YouTube. We're going to be on BitChute, right?
The archives will go up on, in a day.
Yeah.
The CosmicReality.com.
That wasn't the bad guys. I'm glad it was just you.
No, it was just me. It's just me. I was a little preoccupied when I started the show because my yard was flooding out. But since the show, it stopped raining, and it looks like the problem is that if you got real saturation, then there's no place for the water to go. That's just the way Florida is, and so. But hopefully, I asked everybody, stop this rain. I don't need to go through a flood. Da 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 da. And then when I did get flooded out, I'm sitting there, kind of moping and bitching. Why did you guys do this? And I'm just making up stories about, shungite water is now surrounding South Florida because I've got a quarter of a ton or whatever. I've got a shungite in the yard and it's all in the water. Now the water is all, I'm good. And then I said, Gaia. Yes? Why did you let this happen? You never asked me. I had never asked her. I had gone through all of my guides, but I had never said, Gaia, please, I don't need this. And it was like, until you ask me, I ain't going to do anything, sweetie.
Yeah, free will. That's the beauty of the game. You got your free will there, so... Ask and you shall receive. Knock and it shall be opened unto you.
Yeah, so now I'm being a little obnoxious. Everything I need, I go, Gaia? Where's my pencil? What did I do with that pencil, Gaia?
Right. Well, given that you've got an intimate, direct connection to the soul of the planet, well, what the heck? And probably not that many people have that, so...
Everybody has it. Everybody has it. But you just have to have the imagination to believe that you do. I mean, that's
Okay.
basically what it came down to, is that from, metaphysician and I have a lot of science background and everything else, I came to the same conclusion a lot of people did. You have to have a creator consciousness for any of this to work in quantum physics. You have to have thought before anything happens. So, when you're looking at life like that, then you make certain assumptions, assuming that you do have a creator consciousness. Well, then that consciousness is sentient and you should be able to talk directly. But that was theory. It was, yes, there are, and then one day I was out hugging the tree. I have this great mama tree. I was out hugging the tree, and, I suddenly, no, it wasn't the tree. I was sitting here in the house, and out of the blue, just out of the blue, I hear this voice say to me, "Hello," and in my right ear, "Hello," and I went, "Gaia." I knew instantaneously it was Gaia, and she said, "Yes, I have a voice."
I remember you told me that.
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful story.
Yeah. So ever since then, not only do I know, without any doubt, what's the difference between a belief system that I had? Yes, I believe that it's potentially possible to talk to the greater consciousness of the world that I call Gaia. Yes, I believe that. But why did it change between belief and knowing? Absolutely knowing? The experience. You have somebody say to you, "Hello," in your ear, as loud and clear as you've ever heard anybody. That's the difference.
Yeah, there's no arguing with that. No, no theory or science or skeptic can argue with what you know
We're
to
at the
be
end
true.
of the show.
Yeah, so it's noon here in Colorado, 2 p.m. in beautiful Florida. And I would love to see us really get this particular show out there. Our live folks didn't hear it. But let's really promote this one. Just in terms of the infusion of light, the big picture, the Shungite infusion, big picture, light, blanket, whatever we want to call it. This has been a really good conversation covering beautiful, important stuff, I think. So anyway, thank you everybody for listening, being with us. Tune into our Radio 5G YouTube channel if we don't get taken down from this show. I think we probably won't. And we'll be on BitChute if not there. So for Radio 5G, a joint project of Cosmic Reality Radio and the Sacred Academy of Global Evolution, thank you so much for being with us, and God bless us all. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening. May it be.
Let it be.